Greetings! It is I, Tantus now Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the forgotten collectible card games of old. Collectible card games that have oftentimes fallen out of popularity, might not be produced anymore, or have very little support from its creators anymore. But they still exist out there. I was continuing with Vampire the Eternal Struggle, a collectible card game based around the Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game and the World of Darkness. So when we last left off, we were talking about some of the actions your minions could take. Let's talk more about this. There's a lot to talk about in the minion phase. So there's two more actions I want to talk about. The first is acting off a card. This is either going to be you playing a card from your hand as the action your minion is going to be taking, or using a card in play, an action that's related to that, for your minion to act upon. These are regardless, these are going to be special actions your minion's going to take. And unless otherwise noted on one of these cards, this is a stealth at +0 action. If one of these actions lists that it is replacing a basic action you could have taken previously that I talked about, then you follow all the rules of that basic action, unless something else contradicts those rules and is mentioned under this action. So follow all those basic action rules unless something is noted here. So you announce that you're going to take the action. You either choose the card in play or take the card out of your hand and play it. You tap the acting minion, and then we see if the action is successful. If it is not blocked and stopped, you are indeed successful. The action takes place. It is very important to note that regardless of if you can untap your minion to act again, you cannot do the same action with a card you played. So if I have two of the same action card in my hand, I can only play one on the same minion each turn. If I untap this minion, I can't play this second action card I have. I cannot. This is actually exactly the same with a card in play. If I'm having this minion tap, use an action of this card in play, and I somehow untap him, I cannot use that card's action again. I only get one use of it. Now, the political action is when you call a referendum. This is at default a +1 stealth action, and it can only be done by a vampire. That means regardless of the minion you have, only a vampire can call for a political action. Also, a vampire cannot call more than one political action on its turn. That means when you have this political action with this vampire here, it's all it's doing with political this turn. Only this one political action can it actually do. So once you have announced that you're taking a political action, you then will reveal the card from your hand. Once you've basically set it up that you're starting it, tap the acting vampire that you're using, and then we see if it is successful. If the effects is successful, it's not blocked, the political action goes on, you pay whatever cost is associated with playing this political action, then you basically come up with the terms of the referendum, whatever the terms of this vote are, based around the card you played. Then all the kind of votes and ballots are tallied up to figure out if this referendum is effectively passed or it fails. So there's two levels to the political action, which we will dive into more, but effectively you could fail twice. Now let's talk about the basics of taking your action. This is your minion actually doing the action, which has a kind of set number of rules to it that you're going to follow when doing it. So it's important to kind of understand what this process is that each of your minions is going to take when taking an action. It is very important to note that any time during this procedure, a action modifier or a reaction can be played to modify what's going on any time during it. It is also important to note that it is subject to the restrictions on stealth and interception rules. So that's another important thing that you want to talk about. The last important note is, of course, the restrictions on cards that you're playing. Just like with anything else that we've talked about, that you can't do the same card more than once. You cannot have the same reaction card, the same action modifier on the same action more than once a turn. You can only do it once per vampire per turn. Regardless of how many times it can act, you're restricted to that once. Period. Alright, let's go over the procedure. So there is a number of steps in the procedure. First off, you announce the action you're going to take. You play the appropriate card, if there is a card in play that you're playing associated with this, and you tap the minion you're using. Simple as that. Now, if your action is targeting a Methuselah, that Methuselah can attempt to block you. They will have to block you with a untapped minion that is ready in front of them. If the action you're taking does not target a Methuselah, but targets a card in play, then your predator and your prey can both attempt to stop you and block you using their untapped minions that are ready to act. Now, for each block, if the block is unsuccessful, then another block attempt may be attempted. There you go. Each block attempt taps an untapped ready minion. So as many minions as they have ready, and the people that have the option to can attempt to block you. If all block attempts fail, then you've successfully done this action, you pay any costs associated with it, you resolve it completely. If the block attempt is successful, then the blocking minion taps and enters into combat with the acting minion that you have. The minion doing the action. So, that's it for today. I went over the rest of the basic actions you can take. First off, playing action cards, or using the actions of a card in play. Both are critical things that your minion can actually do, because you will have special actions, or special versions of base actions you might want to do with stuff in play. The last thing I talked about for these was, of course, the political action. Starting a referendum. I talked about the very basics of that. And then I started talking about taking the actions you're going to take. Basically, I'm going over the critical steps in actually taking an action. The thing that every action you're going to take, you have to know about. Next episode, I'm going to finish up that, and then we're going to hopefully start moving into politics. Talking about those political options and actions in more detail, and what it actually means to have these referendums and stuff that we've talked about. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave them in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows support the channel, the Empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you could always check out my Patreon. Link description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.